Carl Gustav Jung understood something that most people never grasp. There is a cosmic battle raging for your soul, and the enemy's greatest weapon is not temptation. It's keeping you from becoming who you truly are. Jung didn't speak of a literal devil, but he recognized the archetypal forces that work tirelessly to keep humanity trapped in unconsciousness, mediocrity, and spiritual stagnation. These forces, whether you call them the devil, the shadow of collective unconscious, or simply the resistance to growth, have a vested interest in maintaining the status quo of your limitations. 1. Your relationship with your own shadow. The first thing the devil doesn't want you to change is your relationship with your own shadow. Jung wrote, "Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is." The devil's greatest trick is convincing you that you are either purely good or irredeemably evil. Both are lies that keep you from the transformative work of shadow integration. When you refuse to acknowledge your shadow, you become its puppet. You project your darkness onto others, creating enemies where there should be understanding. You become self-righteous, judgmental, and unconsciously cruel. The devil loves this because it keeps you divided, from yourself and from others. A person who hasn't integrated their shadow is predictable, controllable, and spiritually impotent. But Jung discovered something revolutionary. The shadow, when consciously integrated, becomes a source of tremendous power and creativity. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious, he wrote. The devil fears nothing more than a human being who has made peace with their darkness, because such a person cannot be manipulated by guilt, shame, or false moral superiority. The shadow contains not just your repressed negative qualities, but also your unlived potential. The parts of yourself you've denied because they didn't fit society's expectations. Your creativity, your wildness, your authentic power, all of this lives in the shadow, waiting to be reclaimed. When you integrate your shadow, you become whole, unpredictable, and dangerous to the forces that seek to control you. 2. Your connection to the collective unconscious. The second thing the devil desperately wants to keep you from changing is your connection to the collective unconscious, that vast reservoir of shared human experience and archetypal wisdom that Jung discovered lies beneath our individual consciousness. The devil's strategy is to keep you trapped in the narrow confines of your ego, convinced that you are nothing more than your thoughts, your roles, and your personal history. Jung understood that we are all connected to something far greater than ourselves, a collective wisdom that has been accumulating for millennia. This collective unconscious contains the blueprints for human transformation, the archetypal patterns that can guide us toward wholeness and meaning. When you tap into this deeper layer of consciousness, you gain access to resources that transcend your individual limitations. The devil works over time to keep you disconnected from this source of power. It does this through materialism, which convinces you that only the physical world is real. It does this through rationalism, which dismisses intuition and symbolic thinking as primitive superstition. It does this through individualism, which isolates you from the collective wisdom of your ancestors and the archetypal patterns that could guide your transformation. But when you learn to access the collective unconscious, through dreams, active imagination, meditation, and symbolic thinking, you discover that you are not alone in your struggles. You are part of a vast human story, and the wisdom needed for your transformation already exists within you. Jung wrote, "The collective unconscious is the mighty spiritual heritage of human development, reborn in every individual structure." The devil fears this connection because it makes you uncontrollable and unpredictable. 3. Your capacity for individuation. The third thing the devil absolutely cannot tolerate is your capacity for individuation, Jung's term for the process of becoming a whole, authentic, and self-realized human being. Individuation is the devil's worst nightmare because it creates individuals who cannot be mass-controlled, who think for themselves, and who live according to their own inner truth rather than external expectations. The devil's strategy is to keep you trapped in what Jung called participation mystique, a state of unconscious identification with the collective. You become what others expect you to be. You live according to social roles and conventions without ever asking whether they serve your authentic self. You mistake conformity for virtue and rebellion for evil, never realizing that true morality comes from individual consciousness, not collective compliance. Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But the devil wants you to remain who others think you should be. It uses shame to keep you from expressing your authentic nature. It uses fear to prevent you from taking the risks necessary for growth. It uses comfort to keep you from venturing into the unknown territories of your own potential. Individuation requires courage, the courage to disappoint others, to stand alone when necessary, to trust your own inner voice even when it contradicts popular opinion. It requires you to take responsibility for your own life, rather than blaming circumstances, other people, or fate for your limitations. The devil hates this because individuated people cannot be controlled by mass manipulation, political propaganda, or social pressure. 4. Your understanding of synchronicity. The fourth thing the devil works tirelessly to prevent you from changing is your understanding of synchronicity. Those meaningful coincidences that Jung recognized as signs of a deeper order underlying apparent chaos. The devil's greatest weapon against synchronicity is materialism, the belief that the universe is nothing more than random particles colliding in meaningless space. When you believe that life is fundamentally meaningless, you become deaf to the subtle communications of the unconscious. You dismiss intuitive insights as wishful thinking. You ignore the signs and symbols that could guide your path. You live in a flat, two-dimensional world where nothing is connected to anything else, where there is no deeper purpose or meaning to be discovered. But Jung discovered that synchronicities are actually the universe's way of communicating with us. They are moments when the inner and outer worlds align, when the archetypal patterns of the collective unconscious manifest in external events. Synchronicity is an ever-present reality for those who have eyes to see, he wrote. The devil fears synchronicity because it reveals that we live in a meaningful universe, that there is a deeper intelligence at work in our lives, and that we are not alone in our journey toward wholeness. When you learn to recognize and trust synchronicities, you gain access to a form of guidance that transcends rational planning and logical analysis. 5. Your relationship with suffering. The fifth thing the devil desperately wants to keep unchanged is your relationship with suffering. The devil's strategy is to convince you that suffering is either meaningless and should be avoided at all costs, or that it is punishment for your sins and should be endured with passive resignation. Both attitudes keep you from discovering suffering's transformative potential. Jung understood that suffering is not the enemy of growth, it is often its catalyst. There is no coming to consciousness without pain, he wrote. The devil fears this understanding because it transforms you from a victim into a hero of your own story. When you learn to find meaning in your suffering, you become unbreakable. The devil wants you to either run from pain through addiction, distraction, and denial, or to wallow in it through self-pity and victimhood. Both responses keep you trapped in unconsciousness. But when you learn to face your suffering with awareness and courage, to ask what it is trying to teach you, to use it as a doorway to deeper understanding, you discover that your greatest wounds can become your greatest sources of wisdom and strength. 6. Your connection to the transcendent. The sixth thing the devil cannot allow you to change is your connection to the transcendent, that dimension of reality that exists beyond the material world. The devil's strategy is to keep you trapped in what Jung called nothing but thinking, the belief that humans are nothing but animals, that consciousness is nothing but brain chemistry, that love is nothing but evolutionary programming. Jung recognized that humans have an innate need for connection to something greater than themselves. He called this the religious instinct, and he understood that when this need is not met through authentic spiritual experience, it manifests in destructive ways, through addiction, fanaticism, or nihilistic despair. The devil fears your connection to the transcendent because it makes you realize that you are more than your limitations, more than your circumstances, more than your past. When you experience the numinous, those moments of awe and wonder that connect you to the sacred, you discover that you have access to resources that transcend your individual ego. 7. Your capacity for authentic relationship. The seventh and final thing the devil desperately wants to prevent you from changing is your capacity for authentic relationship, both with others and with yourself. The devil's strategy is to keep you trapped in what Jung called projections, seeing in others what you refuse to see in yourself, loving or hating them for qualities that actually belong to you. When you live in projection, you never truly encounter another person. You encounter only your own unconscious contents reflected back to you. This keeps you isolated, lonely, and unable to experience the transformative power of genuine human connection. The devil loves this because isolated individuals are easier to control and manipulate. But when you withdraw your projections, when you take responsibility for your own psychological contents, when you learn to see others as they truly are, rather than as extensions of your own psyche, you discover the possibility of authentic relationship. Jung wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." And the devil fears authentic relationship because it accelerates growth, provides mutual support for individuation, and creates bonds that cannot be broken by external manipulation. When two people truly see and accept each other, they become a force for transformation that threatens the devil's kingdom of unconsciousness and control. In the next part, we will explore how to practically implement these changes in your daily life and discover the specific strategies Jung recommended for winning this cosmic battle for your soul's authenticity. Now that we understand what the devil doesn't want you to change, the question becomes, how do you actually implement these transformations in your daily life? Jung wasn't just a theorist, he was a practical guide who provided specific methods for spiritual rebellion against the forces that seek to keep you unconscious and unfulfilled. This is your roadmap for becoming the person the devil fears most, an individuated, conscious, and authentically powerful human being. The daily practice of shadow work. The first practical step in your spiritual rebellion is establishing a daily practice of shadow work. Jung discovered that the shadow reveals itself most clearly in our emotional reactions, particularly those that are intense or disproportionate to the situation. The devil wants you to remain unconscious of these reactions, to simply act them out without awareness. Begin each day by setting an intention to observe your emotional responses without judgment. When someone irritates you, instead of immediately blaming them, ask yourself, what aspect of myself am I seeing in this person? When you feel superior to someone, inquire, what am I trying to prove to myself? When you experience intense attraction or repulsion, investigate. What unlived part of myself does this person represent? Keep a shadow journal where you record these observations. Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." The devil's power over you diminishes every time you bring an unconscious pattern into awareness. This practice transforms you from a puppet of your unconscious reactions into a conscious participant in your own psychological drama. The most powerful shadow work happens in relationship with others. The devil wants you to believe that your problems are caused by external circumstances or other people's behavior. But Jung discovered that our relationships are mirrors reflecting our own unconscious contents. When you take responsibility for your projections, when you own your shadow instead of casting it onto others, you reclaim tremendous psychological energy that was previously trapped in blame and resentment. Developing your relationship with the unconscious. The second practical step is developing a conscious relationship with your unconscious mind. The devil's strategy is to keep you identified exclusively with your ego, that small, rational part of yourself that thinks it's in control. But Jung discovered that the ego is like a cork floating on the vast ocean of the unconscious. True power comes from learning to navigate these deeper waters. Start by paying attention to your dreams. Keep a dream journal by your bed and record your dreams immediately upon waking, before your rational mind can dismiss them as meaningless. Jung wrote, "Dreams are the facts from which we must proceed." The devil hates dream work because dreams reveal the compensatory wisdom of the unconscious. They show you what your conscious attitude is missing. Don't try to interpret your dreams intellectually. Instead, engage with them imaginatively. If you dream of a threatening figure, dialogue with it in your imagination. Ask it what it wants, what it represents, what it's trying to teach you. Jung called this active imagination, and it's one of the most powerful tools for accessing unconscious wisdom. Practice recognizing synchronicities, those meaningful coincidences that Jung understood as communications from the unconscious. When you notice repeated symbols, unexpected encounters, or events that seem too meaningful to be random, pay attention. The devil wants you to dismiss these as mere coincidence, but Jung discovered they are actually signs that you're aligned with the deeper currents of your life. Develop your intuitive capacity through meditation and contemplative practices. The devil fears intuition because it provides access to knowledge that transcends rational analysis. Set aside time each day for quiet reflection, away from the constant noise of external stimulation. In this silence, you can hear the subtle voice of your inner wisdom. The courage of individuation. The third practical step is developing the courage necessary for individuation. Jung understood that becoming who you truly are requires tremendous bravery, because it means disappointing others, standing alone when necessary, and trusting your own inner authority even when it contradicts popular opinion. Start by identifying the areas of your life where you're living according to others' expectations rather than your own authentic nature. Are you in a career that satisfies your parents but deadens your soul? Are you in relationships that provide security but stifle your growth? Are you following beliefs that you've never questioned? The devil wants you to remain trapped in these inauthentic patterns because they make you predictable and controllable. Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But this privilege must be claimed through conscious choice and courageous action. Begin making small changes that align your outer life with your inner truth. These don't have to be dramatic. Sometimes the most powerful transformations begin with subtle shifts in how you speak, what you choose to focus on, or how you spend your time. Develop your capacity to tolerate uncertainty and ambiguity. The devil offers the false comfort of absolute answers and rigid belief systems, but individuation requires what Jung called holding the tension of opposites, being able to live with paradox, to embrace both your light and shadow, to find your own path rather than following someone else's map. Practice saying no to requests that don't align with your authentic self, even when saying yes would be easier or more popular. Practice expressing your genuine opinions, even when they're unpopular. Practice following your intuition, even when it doesn't make logical sense. Each act of authenticity weakens the devil's hold on your life. Transforming your relationship with suffering. The fourth practical step is transforming your relationship with suffering. The devil wants you to either run from pain or wallow in it, but Jung discovered a third option, using suffering as a catalyst for growth and transformation. When you encounter difficulty, instead of immediately trying to escape or fix it, pause and ask, what is this experience trying to teach me? What part of myself is being called forth by this challenge? How might this difficulty be serving my growth? This doesn't mean becoming passive or masochistic. It means approaching suffering with consciousness rather than reactivity. Develop practices that help you find meaning in difficult experiences. Jung was deeply influenced by the alchemical tradition, which understood that transformation requires a process of dissolution and reconstitution. Your painful experiences are the raw material from which your wisdom and strength are forged. Create rituals that help you process and integrate difficult emotions. This might involve journaling, artistic expression, physical movement, or ceremonial practices that honor your pain while transforming it into wisdom. The devil wants your suffering to make you bitter and closed. Conscious engagement with pain makes you compassionate and wise. Building authentic relationships. The fifth practical step is learning to build authentic relationships by withdrawing your projections and seeing others as they truly are. The devil's strategy is to keep you trapped in projection, where you never truly encounter another person, but only your own unconscious contents reflected back to you. Practice taking responsibility for your emotional reactions in relationships. When someone triggers you, instead of immediately blaming them, ask yourself, what is my reaction telling me about myself? What am I projecting onto this person? What would it look like to respond from consciousness rather than reactivity? Develop your capacity for genuine empathy, not sympathy, which keeps you merged with others' emotions, but the ability to understand and feel with another person while maintaining your own psychological boundaries. Jung wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." Practice authentic communication by expressing your genuine thoughts and feelings rather than what you think others want to hear. This requires courage because authentic expression makes you vulnerable to rejection or criticism. But it also creates the possibility for genuine connection and mutual transformation. Cultivating sacred awareness. The sixth practical step is cultivating what Jung called religious attitude, not adherence to any particular doctrine, but openness to the sacred dimension of existence. The devil's strategy is to keep you trapped in materialistic thinking that reduces everything to mechanical processes and random events. Develop practices that connect you to the transcendent dimension of life. This might involve meditation, prayer, time in nature, artistic creation, or any activity that opens you to experiences of awe and wonder. Jung wrote, "The approach to the numinous is the real therapy, and inasmuch as you attain to the numinous experience, you are released from the curse of pathology. Pay attention to moments of synchronicity and meaning that reveal the deeper patterns underlying apparent chaos. Keep a synchronicity journal where you record meaningful coincidences and reflect on their possible significance." The devil wants you to dismiss these as random events, but Jung discovered they are actually communications from the deeper layers of reality. Practice gratitude and reverence for the mystery of existence. The devil promotes cynicism and nihilism, but Jung understood that a sense of the sacred is essential for psychological health and spiritual growth. When you approach life with reverence, you open yourself to experiences that transcend the limitations of ego consciousness. The ongoing journey. Remember that this work is not a destination, but a lifelong journey. Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But this becoming is an ongoing process, not a final achievement. The devil will continue to present new challenges and temptations, but each time you choose consciousness over unconsciousness, authenticity over conformity, growth over stagnation, you become more fully yourself." The ultimate rebellion against the devil is not dramatic confrontation, but quiet, persistent commitment to your own growth and authenticity. Every time you integrate a piece of your shadow, every time you follow your genuine intuition, every time you choose meaning over comfort, you strike a blow against the forces that seek to keep humanity unconscious and unfulfilled. Jung understood that individual transformation is not just personal, it's cosmic. When you become who you truly are, You contribute to the evolution of human consciousness itself. You become a light in the darkness, a force for awakening in a world that desperately needs conscious, individuated human beings. The devil's greatest fear is not your perfection, but your authenticity. Embrace your wholeness, light and shadow, strength and vulnerability, certainty and doubt. In doing so, you become truly dangerous to the forces of unconsciousness and a beacon of hope for all those who seek to live authentically in an inauthentic world.